there's always that one team. We have the top 5 that's established right now. It's Philly, it's San Francisco, it's KC, Buffalo, and Cincinnati. And really that's it. And usually we have like 7 or 8, but this year we only have 5. And the history says there's always, at least recent history, there's always one other team kind of lurking. So you go back to 2021. After 14 weeks, the Bengals are 8-6. Nobody saw them coming. Well, they finished 10-7. They get a 4 seed. All of a sudden, they're in the mix and they make the Super Bowl. 2020, Tampa.
Yep.
They're 8-5. New Orleans.
You were gonna mention that last week. It's like when they lost to Kansas City, that Tampa team on a Sunday afternoon with Romo and Nance on the call. Tampa Bay went head-to-head with Kansas City, and they kind of like were able to match, which they lost the game, but
felt like
the same way. Felt like something. Felt
and
like
Romo said that. I
So-
remember Romo said that at the end of that game. He's like, I think Tampa's found it.
Right.
Now, he also said that about Tampa after what I saw last week.
I know.
I don't necessarily agree.
Yeah,
but,
Romo just likes to. It turns out Romo just likes to say that after games.
This was also 2020 Romo, a different version, maybe. Okay, go on.
Right. But the Saints were 10-2, and Tampa was 7-5.
Yeah.
They were 3 games behind. The Saints end up winning the division. Tampa's a 5 seed. 11-5, they make the Super Bowl, they win. 2019, Tennessee.
Yep.
They're 8-5 heading into week 15. They lose to Houston. They're 8-6. Seem like they're either done, maybe done. They sneak in as a 6 seed, 9-7. They make their run. They get to the AFC title game, go toe-to-toe with KC, and they lose. I think there's 3 teams right now.
I love this. Who you got?
That could be the sneaky teams. And we'll do Miami in a second, but the other 2 are the Chargers and Detroit.
Detroit.
Yeah.
Get in on Detroit.
Well, so here's the case. The Dolphins, so they fit a lot of models for this. Like they're 8th in DVOA already. If you go back to the Super Bowl and DVOA the last like 10 years, every team for the last 6 years was in the top 7 DVOA except for Cincinnati last year. And I'm willing to throw out Cincinnati as a complete fluke. As Schrager and I, they murdered us $1 million picks, but I just feel like Mahomes just makes one play, Cincinnati's not in the Super Bowl. Like,
or if they give the ball to
or the
Jerick
Raiders
McKinnon.
or the Titans,
just
sounds
Mahomes,
about right.
Any sort of just that stretch, the 3 minutes before the end of the half, the 3 minutes after the start of the half, like just anything, make one play and Cincinnati's not in there. But after that, it's really top 7 all the way down. In 15, Denver was 8th in DVOA. And in 2012, Baltimore was 10th. So we have, those are 3 teams out of 20 in the last 10 years that weren't top 7 DVOA. Miami's 8th, so they're lingering and they could get in the top 7 by the end of the year. The Lions, they're 9th. Since week 8, they're 4th in DVOA. They're 4th out of everyone in the league. They're 6th offense, 13th defense, 5th special teams. They've won 6 of their last 7. JJ, they have good losses. They lost to Philly. They lost to Buffalo. They lost to Miami. They lost to Dallas. They lost to Minnesota. They lost to Seattle, and they got killed by the Pats. That's the one like where you're like, what the fuck happened there?
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm kind of sold on the Lions. Says JJ, you disagree?
So listen, I love the story. I want to see them in the playoffs. They're a ton of fun. Campbell scares me in game.
Oh, well, you
saw
factor that
last
in. You
week
have to factor
against
it in.
the Jets.
Yeah.
He's kicking a 54-yard field goal. It's frigid, freezing cold to go from 3 to 6. His team bailed him out. His offensive coordinator is a badass, and he can send some bouquets to Robert Saleh for screwing up the end of the game. I don't know what he was doing with the time management.
Tough one for Saleh.
But that's my biggest thing. Like the Lions, to me, out of any of those teams trying to get in the wild cards outside of Dallas, they're the most likely to win a game. I just don't know if they have enough to win their final 3, and they need to win their final 3 if they're getting in.
Schrags and I factor in the 3 weird Dan Campbell decisions when we decide whether we want to put the Lions in $1 million picks.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, we have, so this week, they're at Carolina. Mm-hmm. Carolina, I've finally given up on because you and House and Raheem talked about this on East Coast Bias Tuesday. Carolina's fine unless they're down 7, and then you might as well turn the
Game's
TV
over.
off. It's like they're down 7, no, the game's over.
Can I give you a Carolina Panthers perspective as I'm watching that game, knowing that Bill and I had the underdog parlay and we were all in on the fan? So CJ Henderson, this is real deep Carolina talk if you're a Carolina Panthers blogger. CJ Henderson goes down, and it's like, all right, your number 2 corner's gone. They still are setting the house on every third down, and this guy, Keith Taylor, who is not not that guy. It's up against Deontay Johnson. Literally 9 of 12 on third down.
It was painful.
Every time it was third and long, they sent the house, and Al Holcomb sending everybody, and they're just picking on him with Deontay Johnson. It was enough where you're like, all right, I guess Steve Wilkes can't be the coach next year. Like if you're a defensive coach and that
so
happens,
bad.
like that
I
can't,
think they got so excited to blitz Trubisky.
I know.
That they kind of completely lost perspective of the game because the only guy who could hurt them on the field was Deontay Johnson.
And he was.
Who's by himself on the left side of the field, just torching.
Taylor.
Yeah, it was tough. And from a coaching standpoint, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's in Carolina. We haven't even talked about how bad the weather's going to be all over the place this weekend. If the Lions are a real playoff team, they have to beat Carolina. And it has to be convincing. So to me, we'll know after this weekend one way or the other because
it's a rat line, guys. The Lions only favored by 2.5 at that crummy Carolina team after last week. The entire world is on Detroit too.
But we had 3 rat lines last week, and we went 2-1 on the rat lines.
Yeah,
wait, I don't know this vernacular. I'm not in this one. What is a rat line? I love this.
Basically, it's like it just looks too easy. We've talked about it. We just call it something
basically,
different.
Schrager, it's too good to be true. Like I thought, for example, Cincinnati last week laying 3.5 against Tampa. Seemed like one of those lines that was too good to be true.
San Francisco, Seattle on Thursday night. Why wouldn't everyone take San Francisco? Why is this so easy? I ended up not betting that game because it was so
such
easy.
a rat line.
I'm so scared.
You missed out.
But you're right. That Carolina, Detroit. So anyway,
I still like Carolina. I still like Detroit. I'm saying, like, here's the other thing with Detroit. Now I know Dan Campbell's going to have a couple of weird decisions. You mentioned the offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, who I am telling you right now, guys, is going to be hired as a head coach at 36 years old. He is all anyone texts me about, all these executives and these, like, what do you know about Ben Johnson? And here's the deal. They're getting contributions from rookies who weren't contributing. So like they added these players. This guy, James Houston, is a pass rusher who did not play till Thanksgiving, a rookie out of Jackson State. He's got 5 sacks in 4 weeks. Jamison Williams, they added him in the last couple. Like they are adding players as they go. So not only are they winning games, they're getting better personnel and they're getting more momentum. I think Detroit rolls, and I don't think the Carolina fans are actually coming out in droves in this weather in Carolina to go cheer on the Panthers this weekend.
Well, it's tough for them because 2 weeks ago when we had them, they had that huge start against Seattle. But second half, they didn't really do much. And then in that last game, they didn't really do much either. I think the Sam Darnold thing becomes insurmountable the more you watch it. I was surprised they couldn't run on Pittsburgh. But
Deontay Foreman was tiptoeing last week, and he is not a tiptoeing to the line. It seems like I'm very passionate here. I watched every snap of that game.
Right. Well, we were going nuts for it. The Lions, though, I still feel like I'm looking at Washington at San Francisco this week. Good luck.
Washington's going to be spunky.
7-1.
Remember, I said this. Washington's going to be spunky in that game. And I love the Niners, and I'm invested in the Niners to win the Super Bowl. They just won the division. That's a kitchen sink game for Washington. Young is back. I think they cover. Just be careful there. Be careful.
Definitely not going to be careful.
I was going to say, we can make the bet. You save me some trouble, so I'm fine with that.
Then they're home for Cleveland, Dallas the next 2 weeks. So if they lose San Francisco and they're 7-point underdogs and Detroit wins, Detroit is now in the playoffs, just needing to win out their last 2.
Yeah.
So I think what's the most fun scenario for the playoffs, just in general from a gambling standpoint? It's the Lions making it.
Is it?
And having Dan Campbell and Jared Goff and just being able to be like, what do we do with this?
Or is it Green Bay making this crazy run down the stretch? Because if they beat the Dolphins and they win the following week, they play the Lions for what could be a playoff spot. And then all of a sudden you've got this Green Bay team in the Rodgers storyline. Like, I don't know what I'm rooting for. I think they're both very intriguing.
I'm ready for Rodgers to go away.
I'm with you. And maybe that's because I have an investment with the Dolphins this week.
Let's flip the channel on Rodgers.
Schrager, how about this one? Tyreek Hill returning to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. You want
opening round?
Game.
Oh, for week 1. Oh, yeah. Good. All right. The Chargers, which I think are the most divisive team right now for the playoff picture, because I want to get to that 5 seed if I'm in the AFC, because I get to play either Tennessee or Jacksonville. Tennessee is 7-7. They play Houston this week. They no longer have Ryan Tannehill. No. They have 3 of their 5 starters out in the offensive line. Everybody, you go across the board, And we always talk about the Schrags. Every year there's that team when we get to December, they've just had too many injuries.
That's it. They're depleted.
And you pass the point of no return where you're not the team anymore. And it feels like Tennessee has hit that point. Malik Willis, I watched that game. I think we had Houston, and he just can't throw the ball. They can't really do anything with him. Burks, I don't know if he's coming back. I want to play them or Jacksonville. We're taping this before Jacksonville, the Jets, so we'll have a lot more clarity on how real Jacksonville is in the playoff picture tonight. But Baltimore or Miami or the Chargers.
I mean,
for
Baltimore,
that 5 seed.
You're talking about Tennessee, Baltimore. I don't know if
Baltimore's falling apart too.
And the Sharks are in the water. Like, hey, Greg Roman can't leave his house, it sounds like. They're just going nuts there in the local market. This is another year where they have it all locked up. It looks like they're on their way, and then the offense just falls apart. The numbers are crazy. The last 5 weeks, they don't have a touchdown to a receiver. They have the worst ranked offense.
They just picked up Sammy Watkins. How sad is that?
And he'll be like their number one. And the thought is, all right, so fine. We don't pass the ball. We don't do anything. Last week against Cleveland in that terrible weather, all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, they abandoned the run, and Dobbins was having a day, and Edwards having a day. So the Ravens could be one of these teams that just falls off a cliff also. They play Atlanta at home. Again, 10-degree weather, raining, banged up. We watched that Atlanta team. Yeah, you could see. Can't you see Algier just running for 200 yards and like winning 6-3 in that game?
JJ, there's a bet I love in that Ravens game. But I want to go back to the Chargers because it's important.
You got two guests. We're all over the place.
There's this bet I love in the Falcons game. Falcons to win the first half, Falcons to win the game, plus 340. Because that Falcons are another team. If they're down 7, the game's over.
They're going to get smoked.
But I think they could run on Baltimore.
What, Tyler Huntley?
Well, if they're going to win, they're going to have to win the first half or they have no chance anyway. So why not take the plus 340 if you like them? You don't like it,
hate
JJ?
that. No, I don't. Well, I like Baltimore in the game. I feel like as crappy as they've been on offense, after they choked up a playoff spot last year, and I know Lamar's probably not going to play. We're sitting here, 3 o'clock?
Tyler Huntley.
No, he's out.
It's going to be, it's official. He's out. I just can't see Baltimore choking for the second year in a row. And I got news for you guys. If they lose to Atlanta this week, they are choking for the second year in a row. So I think Baltimore, Harbaugh finds a way. The one thing about the Ravens is, beginning of the year, they were scoring a ton of points. They were yucking up leads. The defense stunk. Now they got their defense somewhat in order, and the offense is an absolute nightmare. I think it'll be a little better because what does Atlanta have to play for in this game? I know you got to be careful with that.
An NFC South title.
The division.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Stop it. Stop it.
I know
Tampa
might end the season with 6 wins.
Stop it.
JJ,
They're a game back.
What league are you watching?
Stop it. Stop it. You could sell me on New Orleans, maybe 2.5 against Cleveland. Then you could get the NFC title going with them. I can't with Atlanta. I can't.
Baltimore's 5th in DVOA somehow, which makes no sense to me whatsoever because every week it feels like they either lost or they should have lost.
I know.
And somehow advanced metrics like them. So the Chargers is a team that the advanced metrics do not like. For the season, they are 23rd. They're in the bottom 10 advanced-wise. And yet, the case for them, first of all, I don't think their quarterback was healthy from that Week 2 KC game for 2 months. I just don't think he was healthy. I think he probably had like what Mike White has right now and was just playing. Mike Williams, he's played
awesome.
maybe 2/3 a year.
He's awesome when he's out there.
They're 6-2 when he has 2 catches, JJ. Keenan Allen missed 7 games. Last 4 weeks, they're 6th in defensive DVOA. They're 8-6, but they lost to KC twice by 3 points each game. They lost to San Francisco, and they have some shaky Vegas.
They lost
Seattle,
to the Raiders after
losses.
up 10-0.
Yeah, they have a couple shaky losses. But for the most part, I don't know. Bosa and James are questionable this week. But in general, this is a Herbert play. This is just like, all right, what if Herbert just goes on a run now? We've seen this happen before, and I don't know, man. If they can pull off this week and kind of get someone, they're playing the Colts. Colts starting Nick Foles on Christmas night. Chargers favored by 4.5. Feels a little like a rat line, JJ. But for the most part, are you buying the Chargers at all, or are they just a stay away to you?
So, confession. I bet the Chargers at the beginning of the year to win the Super Bowl.
Oh, boy.
2 or 3 weeks ago, I was completely out. I said this was a donation. I can't believe I got invested in this team, knowing the history of this team. Well, what happens? They beat the Dolphins on Sunday night. They look amazing on Sunday night. Last week, I had Tennessee +3. That game was not even that close. They should have won that game by double figures. They're a different team.
They should have. You're right.
When Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are out there, they can put up points. Now, they are the Chargers. This game against the Colts scares the crap out of me. Yeah. They played Denver at the end of the year. Remember, they played Denver in that ugly, hideous Monday night game. Yep. They should have lost that Monday night game. I could see Denver playing spoiler there. I think the Chargers are the sort of team, Schrager, if they get in, I think they're insanely dangerous, but you can't rule out the possibility of Chargers things happening over the next 3 weeks.
Okay, well, so Schrags, this is why it's important. They could sneak in and immediately be favored in round one against Tennessee or Jacksonville.
Easily.
And they could be healthy at that point, too, for the most part, except for J.C. Jackson.
Kyle Brandt's on the Good Morning Football show with me. He had a hilarious bit. He goes, bring up their schedule, and it says Colts, Rams, Broncos. He goes, that scares the shit out of me. If you're a Chargers fan, you'd almost rather see Bengals, Bills, Chiefs, because this is where the scar tissue starts to play. And it's like, are you going to slay that dragon once and for all? Because this is real. Some franchises are just snake bitten, and this is real. And this is a classic type of stretch where the Chargers would screw the pooch. But if they can get over that hump, they might not have to hear about this anymore. They might not have to hear about Marlon McCree. They might not have to hear about last year what happened in Las Vegas on week 18. Like, this is a huge game for them. And if they come out and they beat the Colts by 20 points, which they absolutely should, the Colts should be completely done. They have nothing left to play for. Everything is over. Nick Foles is out there. But if this is another nail biter like last week was, there's real scar tissue there. And I know I'm friendly with people in that organization, and they get really pissed about it. They're like, what is something that involved Nate Kading in 2005 have anything to do with Cameron Dicker and our team now? Like, why are we talking about old chart? Like, that's ridiculous. New coach, new everything. And yet there is almost this grim reaper that is like hovering over that logo. And until they get in the playoffs, I think every Chargers fan knows you got to bite your fingernails because it's not a sure thing.
Well, as you know, nobody believes in baggage with a franchise more than me. I'm the number one. I mean, the Pats beat them into the Rex Grossman year.
Yeah.
The game was over. They had the game-winning interception.
Marlon fumbles it away.
Troy Brown strips it to get the ball back.
They do like the lights out dance.
It might have been the single flukiest play of the entire Patriots dynasty. And then the Pats go next week and they almost make the Super Bowl. They don't. But they've had. I mean, think about how many games Marty Schottenheimer, where they were like 7-point favorites, 8-point favorites in the playoffs, they blew.
I still remember Sean Ellis running all over them, and the Jets and Sanchez going in there and winning a playoff game.
Right, the Jets.
Nate Kading missing field goals.
On a Saturday night.
Or last year, the freaking Raiders.
I know.
Herbert saving them on 4th and 18. They still don't win. So anyway, it's the most fun, I think, if just for football, if they make it and Miami makes it and Baltimore doesn't make it, because I think Baltimore is torturous to watch. I don't even think Ravens fans like watching them. So if you had to say rock, paper, scissors, but 2 make it, I'm giving you the Ravens, I'm giving you the Chargers, and I'm giving you the Dolphins. What are your 2, JJ?
I think all 3 can make it, technically.
I think all 3.
Okay,
I mean,
you're going
unless
all
you're
3.
Here's the team you got to throw in there as well, and they're definitely not as sexy, but they have a big one Thursday night. That would be the Jets.
Yep.
Or your team. If your team by some miracle...
Team's out. Shoot my team to the sun. They're done.
I still have to throw them in there. But out of those 3, schedule favors Ravens, Chargers. But I think feel-wise, Chargers, Dolphins. I think the Chargers and the Dolphins are better teams than Baltimore.